Roger Ballen is an American photographer who lives and works in South Africa. An exhibition of his work is coming to London's Festival Hall in April, and he has a book out next week. He makes his living as a geologist, and this work takes him to the remoter areas of that country. There he photographs poor whites, descendants on the whole of the original Boers who trekked into the interior 200 years ago, the white tribe of Africa. Until recently, they were the electoral backbone of the nationalist government and hence of apartheid. Now they're struggling to adjust to political change. Their home is the high veld, the endless plains of North and Central South Africa, that they call the Platteland.
The poor white in South Africa is really the key to understanding South African politics. The poor white dominated all aspects of a white culture up to the time they took power. And so this whole system of apartheid was created to develop the poor white and to protect the poor white. So those people who couldn't afford homes were given homes. Those people who couldn't afford education or medical care were given those things. And in particular, they were given a job on the basis of being white, and to a large degree, a lot of these people's salvation was the white government. Where I'm sitting right now is in the Western Transvaal, about 200 miles to the west of Johannesburg, and we're about 100 kilometers from the Botswana border. Platteland is a very common term used by Afrikaans people. It means basically flat land or countryside. But for me, the photographer, it deals with a connotation of strangeness, of a place is far away, perhaps even surreal. And ultimately, Platteland to me means a state of mind, a psyche. And this psyche is bound up with the whole mythology of the South African countryside, people who've been living with the land, in the land, and with its people and with its animals and its plant life. And from that whole relationship that existed for a number of centuries, a unique person was created. In a way, a European that had an African base. And some of these people haven't changed in many other ways since the Great Trek. The Great Trek was a movement of white people from the Cape to the interior of South Africa. And many of these people really never saw any other European people for 200 years. And I'm trying to explore the more basic white culture, the white culture that actually hasn't been overly exposed to modern elements. I was really trying to define who are the people that are living here, what are they all about, what's their history about, what's their philosophy all about, what are their unique visual elements, what is aesthetically different about these people. You guys are used to me taking pictures. It's been a long time knowing each other. I remember you, Joseph. When did you come to Zeros?
Yes.
You've been here a long time.
You saw, hombre, 24 years in South Africa.
Yeah.
Maar in Zeres, 16 years.
16 years.
16 years.
I know him for 16 years.
How long have you been here, Koen? In this place?
I was birthed here, born here, raised, brought out.
Yeah.
But I'm in this place 23 years, on and off.
Yeah. Taking pictures requires a lot of empathy with your subject. It requires quite a lot of understanding of the type of person you want to look for. And it also requires a sort of a keen psychological eye, a trained psychological eye to pierce into the facade of the subject to then transform the subject. I mean, what you're actually doing in a photograph is transforming an individual into a photographic statement. There's two pictures that I think are quite interesting. There's man and woman in boarding house and deep level miner. And the deep level miner and the man and woman in boarding house come from the same place in the Western Transvaal. And these people just can't seem to leave the boarding house. They're living on pensions, but they just have lost all confidence. I think that's an important point in terms of the people I photograph. They've lost all their confidence. You know, they just can't go beyond their current circumstances. In fact, Koen has been in this state for the last 24 years. He does not leave. He spends his day sitting on the bed looking at the ceiling.
Die black people, you moet clever wees. Nah, after 6 o'clock in the night, it's no good of the road.
You can't go to
Mm-mm. There is, baby, is definitely a black tan.
It is a black tan, yeah. On
On
weekend,
Friday, Saturday is black.
you can't walk the street.
Maybe of 50 black people, he is one blank.
Yeah.
My father's a brother. He was in the Congo.
And really all they want to see is something common, something a part of who they are, which is ultimately the white culture. And that's a dream almost now. There's a dream of when things were better, when the blacks were subservient and the whites controlled things, when the black said boss and they had self-respect.
The black people had no respect for black people. When apartheid is finished, my art, die would
They hate you.
He hate you.
The white skin. They hate you.
It's not the same, he say, ja baas. Meet them. And say, kop, he say, fuck you. Sorry to speak so, huh? It's the same, ik denk zo.
Yeah.
Is die boer. Weet, hij komt groot. Maar die
The brain.
brein, hij blij met die boer.
Yeah.
He got no respect. The respect is finished. Last 5 years was alright. Of you take nu, baby, Bantu, boy. He say, ja, morgen baas, hoe gaan het baas? Is alright.
All ones.
But the small one is finished. It's finished. He had no respect for you.
They cut their throat when they get to
Yeah.
town.
One of the things that characterizes many of the people that live in these places is a general feeling of claustrophobia, of being hemmed in. You know, they feel everything around them is going black. If you actually walk through most of the towns in South Africa, you'll find very few white people in the towns. You'll only find blacks. For one white, maybe there'll be 50 blacks. And a lot of these people feel very worried to the point of not wanting to almost go outside into the town. They feel threatened by the violence going on in the country. They're paranoid about their houses being broken into. And they're generally scared of the whole black culture. And wherever they look, in a metaphoric way, they see a black. Photography in many ways is always looking for archetypes. You're looking at something deeper than what the outside means. And in many ways, my photography is gone from surfaces and textures, which are still very important to me, to trying to get into the interior of the psyche. They're very much about psychology and how a psychology can be expressed through universal archetypes. People that are outside of things. I think, you know, the people, the archetype that I've been dealing with is one that's really not part of the country anymore. He's been lost in time. And I think that's a really important aspect of the photographs you look at. It's people who have been lost in time, people who have been passed over, people who are part of the whole frontier past of South Africa, people who still are living in the bush of Africa, but actually haven't made the step to modern South Africa. And they feel very confused at that. They don't know whether they should be going backwards or they should be going forwards. They don't know where they stand. So maybe just stand there. Let me try to take a picture of the family.
Oh, together?
Yeah, together. That'd be nice. Okay. That'd be a nice picture. How old's the baby?
He's 11 months today.
11 months. Johan was a very important subject of mine, and I met Johan about 8 or 9 years ago. And Johan's personality not only represented something very unique about the culture that I tried to ultimately capture, but he was also an archetype. That's nice. Let me try to get it closer. It's very hard to express verbally what it is about a certain person that makes him an archetype. I'm a photographer, not a writer, but I would say that Johan expresses something about the town know-it-all. He knows how to do everything, but on the other hand, he can't seem to get anywhere. He's a very intelligent person. On the other hand, he's the person who can't achieve anything.
How do I spend my time? Mostly in town with bicycle, have a few beers in the bar, play pool, do piece jobs, some paint work and collecting some bottles, tins. If a guy needs some help, I just go and help. I'm like a normal handyman in the town, you know. Yeah, you can do what you want. You feel free to do what you want. You can go into the bush. And I'm like a tree. My roots going deep into the ground here. That's the best way to pronounce it. That's why I don't want to leave.
There were a couple important points in South African history that was very important to the poor white community here. The first thing was the Boer War. The Boer War created literally thousands of landless people who had no occupation. Many of the whites were living in very similar conditions that the blacks were living in. And this continued throughout the Great Depression. And then the war came. And after the war, the Nationalist Party took over South Africa. And the Nationalist Party was a party of the whites. And the Nationalist Party used their position of power to better the white population. Many of the people who in a market system couldn't get work were given work, only because of skin color. And many of the people I've photographed, they're not particularly capable of doing certain work, and they feel very threatened because the black offers similar qualifications at a lower wage.
It's not a job relationship, but I got a chance at the mine here in this month that my nephew is working there. And December I asked the guy if he got an open space for me on the trucks or something. Any kind of job, just to earn some money, to make a living. And I go there this last week on Thursday, asked them if they still got an open space. He said, no, it's already got 2 blacks.
Better you make money and it's better than this. Don't you stand over there. Many of the people living in the countryside here have lived in such isolation for so many years. They yearn for the past when things were different and a person could just kick the soil and one found a diamond.
And in the old, this rough is full of diamonds. The old people...
I've known Selma for about 10 years, and in many ways she was the archetypal madwoman. At the same time, there's something very sane about her in the sense that she incorporated all the frustrations, all the conflicts that people face as prospectors.
This veld is full of big big diamonds, this rough. Because the old time, you can see them, they always got small. I don't worry about it.
And the diamond's very symbolic in my mind, and the prospector's a very symbolic person. Selma, just move over a little bit. Yeah.
In what you call it?
Life, in many ways, is about dreams, finding things that don't happen, and looking for things that may happen that can change your life.
Yeah, it was a hospital, yeah. Hospital. And we can do it, you can do it again. Huh? If we stand together, we can do it again, isn't it so? Huh? Then people can live, because the diamonds is there. But you must work for it, and you must work right.
Most of these people spend their life, looking through thousands and millions of pieces of rock to try to find that one little diamond that will change their life. And usually they don't find it. And if they find it, they sell it at the wrong price and get taken advantage of. I've been a geologist for many years and a person involved in mineral exploration, and that really involves a lot of looking for things. It involves sampling of the earth, and in many cases I can go and do my work and also do my photography. And the process is very similar. You're looking all the time, looking to try to find something. And in many ways it's like looking for a diamond, You're looking for this one isolated point. It's really a process of a gambling. Hopefully you'll find this one little thing that's there, that sparkles, that will make a difference. Film has its own chemistry, its own life in a way, and it transforms things beyond any control you have. And ultimately what I look for is something that has a strong sense of impact, a strong sense of surprise, a strong sense of complexity. This picture, one of my favorites, it's called Johan and Bertie, Western Transvaal, 1987. They were chopping wood for the fireplace. It was a rather cold day in terms of South Africa. And immediately I saw something very interesting. Johan here had sweatpants on, and above the sweatpants he had put summer shorts. And both of these fellows were very relaxed with the camera, and they stood there, and I took the picture. And, I felt there were a lot of things going for the picture, especially the light and the textures. And the textures are very important in my photographs. Here in this photograph, you can see the wall is full of textures. The shirts, the pants, the face has all sorts of textures. The bagginess, the wrinkling in the clothes certainly accentuates the whole photograph. Also in this photograph, there's a repetition of forms. In the background, you can see a firewood on the side of the photograph, which repeat the cigarette that Johan's holding. And the faces of the two brothers accentuates their personalities. They're both intensely looking at the camera and have something very eccentric about them that makes you wonder where in place, where in time these people come from. All you can do as a photographer is try to set your subjects up. Okay, Flippy, just stand straight. That's nice. Now put your hand down a bit. That's perfect. You know, the background, the foreground, or the subject stage in a way. It's nice to stand there. That's perfect. I was very influenced by Samuel Beckett, the playwright. And that timelessness, a sense of a deep hiddenness,
I think we got it.
the coreness, the sense of the unknown side of the world is what I've tried to express in many of my subjects. You know, the white government's gone now, and the new government isn't really concerned with the plight of the poor white or the deprived white. The black government is more concerned with its own people. And the black government says, well, you had your chance before, now it's our people's chance now. So I think the white person here is very insecure about where the futures lie.
They pinched all my big diamonds. I'm not concerned about it. I leave it revenge for the Lord. That child is worth more than diamonds, and including you, all the diamonds in earth as out earth. I'd like people to come here and make a living. If you got a pick and a shovel and a sieve, you'll never die of hunger. You can't die of hunger. How can you go in a people's house and break and make and steal? Even my diamond ring is gone. I think this ring might be my granny. My granny was a Russian princess. Other people give me clothes. My sister gave me this. My daughter-in-law gave me this. This is my child's school shoes. And the bloody diamonds is lying there. Here is lanterns. Here is full lanterns. People that come here, they chase them away. No human being can live like this. There they are.
I would say many of these people, rather than being freakish, certainly show other human qualities that could be called extreme. If one would say a freak is somebody that has trouble adjusting to society, I would like to say that there are certainly enough freaks in the upper classes of modern South Africa.
They kill them and they take everything that they can get in.
And apartheid made everybody think that the whites were supreme and the whites were enlightened, that the whites were living the good life, and the blacks were incapable of achieving any of those things. So in many ways, these photographs stripped some of the illusions of the apartheid system, that whites are living in poverty, whites are living in paralysis on a large scale. And these issues weren't touched by the South African press or the South African regime. And this isn't something that a lot of white people like to see or hear about. It's made a lot of white people very uneasy, this book. And it's opened up a wound.